So, do you remember what happened last week in Daniel 2? Well, if you don't, here's a quick reminder. The king went on, "Tell me what I dreamed and tell me what it means, or I will cut you into little pieces and knock your houses down," said the king.
This is meant to be a show for kids.
So, Daniel's life was threatened, but he trusted God. And in the end, he and his friends Hananiah, Mishael and Azariah, or Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, as the Babylonians called them, they were promoted to important positions. And now we come to chapter 3. And unfortunately, all that is about to change. Because King Nebuchadnezzar starts building. Can you guess what he starts building? Is it a shed? Is it a house? Is it a tower of pancakes so big that it reaches up to the skies and is covered in syrup and cream and blueberries and... No. Anyway, it's none of those. King Nebuchadnezzar started building a statue. Now, it was made completely of gold. And it was huge. It was a huge statue. Made completely of gold, and it towered up and reached to the skies, and it was covered in syrup and cream and blueberries and all sorts of things that... Sorry, I'm a bit hungry at the moment because we've only been eating vegetables and drinking water, just like Daniel. I'm getting a bit distracted. Anyway, the statue wasn't covered in syrup, but it was huge, and it did reach up to the sky, and it was terrifying. Done? All right, milking it a bit, but it was a scary statue. And the king made a rule. In fact, it was a law. He said this: whenever you hear the music play, everyone must bow down and worship my statue. It was a bit like musical statues, but instead of freezing, you had to worship. And it must have got really annoying. Check this out. So, every time you heard the music, you were meant to bow down and worship the statue. Only, if you didn't, you weren't just out. It was a bit worse than that. The king said,
"Anyone who refuses to obey will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace."
It's pretty harsh. Although, at least he wasn't going to knock their houses down as well, like last week. So, the king made a law that anyone who didn't bow down to the statue and worship it when the music sounded would be thrown into the fiery furnace. But Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego believed in God. They knew they couldn't bow down and worship a statue instead of God. So they made a choice. And even though they didn't know what was going to happen to them, they trusted God.
Then we stand together?
Yes.
Bible, these three men say the most amazing thing. They say, our God is able to save us from the fiery furnace, but even if he doesn't, we will still worship him and not the statue. They trusted that even if we can't understand God's plans or why God is letting something happen, we can still trust him because of who he is and because he loves us. And so they said, whatever happens, even if the worst thing happens, we will still trust and worship God. And so the king had no choice. He'd made a law and he had to carry it out. So he had Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego thrown into the fiery furnace. But just as he was turning away, he noticed something.
Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? Look, I see 4 men, unbound, walking around in the fire unharmed. And the 4th looks like a god.
So God was with Daniel's friends. He was with them as the law was made. He was with them as they decided not to worship the statue. He was with them in the fiery furnace, keeping them safe. And we can trust that he's with us. Maybe you've been through really hard things before. Maybe you're going through something now. This story tells us that whatever happens, God will be with us if we ask him. Well, that's it for today. So until next week, goodbye and God bless. Oh, I completely forgot to tell you what happened after they were saved from the fiery furnace. Well, just like last week, when the king saw what had happened, he couldn't help himself. He said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants." Great so far, King. Keep going. "They trusted him and defied my command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own." That's all true, King. You go. "Therefore, I decree that anyone who says anything against their God..." Hang on, King. Wait, don't put any threats in. I think I can see where this is going. Don't say it. "Will be cut into pieces and their houses knocked down." You said it.